Welcome to our deep dive into the fascinating life of Johnny Crawford, best known for his unforgettable portrayal of Mark McCain on The Rifleman. While many remember him as the beloved son of Lucas McCain, Johnny's journey extended far beyond the television screen. From a childhood steeped in musical heritage to a career that bridged acting, music, and even rodeo, Johnny's story is one of resilience, passion, and artistry. Join us as we uncover the hidden chapters of his life, exploring the man behind the legacy. Johnny Ernest Crawford was born on March 26, 1946, into a family whose devotion to music and theater seemed imprinted on their very DNA. Imagine growing up in a house where every corner reverberates with the tinkling of piano keys, the soft strumming of a guitar, or the hushed hum of a distant radio. That was Johnny's world. His mother was said to be an exceptionally skilled pianist, and through her talents he was introduced to a vast universe of harmonies. In addition, Johnny's maternal grandfather, Alfred Marin, sometimes spelled differently in certain family documents, served as an acclaimed violinist in Germany and Belgium before World War I disrupted the peace of Europe. One can only imagine how extraordinary it must have felt for Johnny's grandfather to pack up that precious violin and cross the Atlantic in 1914, forging a new life in America. Although that ocean voyage was fraught with its own perils, it ultimately led to an exciting new chapter, a symbolic passing of the musical baton that would echo into the next generations. Meanwhile, on the paternal side of Johnny's family, the legacy of music was just as formidable. His paternal grandfather, Bobby, was immersed in the songwriting scene of the 1920s. Teaming up with iconic collaborators like De Silva, Brown, and Henderson, Bobby made his mark by co-establishing the Crawford Music Corporation. This company nurtured the hits that spun on countless record players, fueling roaring parties during that vibrant jazz age. Bobby's knack for composing popular tunes caught the ear of none other than Irving Berlin, one of America's most influential songwriters, whose melodies defined entire eras of Broadway and musical cinema. Through this alliance, Bobby's career opened up in ways he might never have imagined, eventually bringing him into the orbit of the legendary Al Jolson. It's amazing to think that what began as a manager-client relationship blossomed into a partnership that guided the creation and production of numerous Broadway plays and musicals. Yet Bobby did not rest on those laurels. Even amid the economic tumult following the 1929 stock market crash, he chose to sell the Crawford music catalog to Warner Brothers, paving the way for a fresh chapter in his career. The 1930s saw him become a leading manager and producer, and though that golden run ended in 1941 when Bobby passed away, the trove of sheet music and original recordings he left behind would light a spark in his grandson's heart. Johnny never forgot how his grandfather had once worked with the great Al Jolson. In fact, he cherished every detail of that family lore. So, how does a child with such a richly woven tapestry of musical and theatrical pedigree get his first real break in show business? Sometimes life is all about being in the right place at the right time, and for young Johnny that moment arrived in a most unexpected way. One weekend, Johnny was seated in Sunday school, listening to the usual lessons, while unbeknownst to him, his teacher was also a talent agent. She spotted in him a certain spark. Maybe it was his enthusiasm, or perhaps that natural performance style that certain kids possess. Soon, she decided to send Johnny out on auditions, opening the first door to the film industry for him. At that time, nobody could have guessed where this path would lead. It was just a boy with a cherubic face and a glowing desire to entertain. But fate had more in store. Johnny was also serious about fencing, taking lessons from Ralph Faulkner, a respected fencing coach. As it happened, Walt Disney Studios was on the lookout for young talents for the Mickey Mouse Club. They reached out to Faulkner hoping he'd recommend aspiring kids with a bit of stage presence. Intrigued, Johnny and his brother Bobby, yes, another Bobby, rushed to the audition armed with enthusiasm, basic fencing skills, and a dash of the intangible star quality that producers are always hunting for. Then came that moment of truth. After their fencing demonstration, the casting folks asked if either brother had additional talents. In stepped Johnny's grandmother, shrewdly suggesting he perform an imitation of the singer Johnny Ray. Johnny, with remarkable confidence for someone so young, Johnny launched into the iconic Ray ballad cry. The audition room probably went hushed as his delicate vocals floated through the air. In that instant, any doubt about whether he could captivate an audience vanished. The result? Johnny landed a spot in the Mickey Mouse Club, joining the coveted Red Team in 1955, appearing in a total of 16 episodes, a proud achievement for a boy barely past kindergarten age. While still a Mouseketeer, Johnny had his inaugural recording session. Though his voice was not described as powerful or operatic, it had a soft, sincere quality that resonated just enough to make people lean in. Unfortunately, the show decided to scale back on the number of Mouseketeers for the following season, and Johnny was among those cut from the lineup. Yet for this ambitious youngster, the curtain was far from closed. He moved on to perform in smaller roles, taking guest appearances in various projects, fueled by that unstoppable drive that tends to define child performers who believe in their own promise. And then came The Rifleman, a Western series that emerged amid a cultural landscape fascinated with stories of gunslingers and ranch life. Set against the rugged backdrop of the post-Civil War frontier, The Rifleman followed Lucas McCain, a widowed rancher, and his son Mark. It was a show that combined heartwarming family values with episodes brimming with moral dilemmas, camaraderie, and frontier justice. Producers and casting directors faced with the daunting challenge of finding a child actor able to stand toe-to-toe with Chuck Connors, a towering athlete-turned-actor, discovered that perfect fit in Johnny. Maybe it was his earnest gaze or the sense of wonder in his eyes. Whatever it was, it worked. Audiences across America were charmed by Mark McCain, the boy who wrestled with everyday life lessons while riding around the family ranch. Johnny's portrayal had both sincerity and subtlety, so much so that he earned an Emmy nomination for Best Supporting Actor in a Dramatic Series during the show's first season. It was a major achievement, though not the only Emmy attention in the Crawford family that year. His brother Bobby and father Robert also received nominations in other categories, underscoring the breadth of talent flowing in their bloodline. With The Rifleman soaring in the ratings, producers realized that Johnny's youthful popularity might transfer seamlessly to the music charts. It was a time when actors frequently tried their hand at singing, and many ended up releasing singles or albums. Meanwhile, a family friend of the Crawfords struck up a conversation with Bob Keane from Delphi Records during a cocktail soiree. Keane mentioned he was searching for a young actor who could sing, ideally one who already enjoyed a built-in following. The friend wasted no time in mentioning Johnny. Within days, the introductions were made, and soon Johnny found himself under contract with Delphi Records. Thus, in 1961, a new chapter began. The teenage star of a beloved TV Western walked into a recording studio and recorded his debut single, Daydreams. In an era of swirling doo-wop harmonies and the new wave of surf rock creeping onto the scene, Johnny's gentle vocals were a contrast, soothing, unassuming, and heartfelt. Johnny also had the chance to sing on The Rifleman during its final 2 seasons. Those episodes allowed him to blend his budding music career with the show that had made him a household name. He even teamed up with his brother Bobby, releasing tracks like Good Buddies and You Gotta Wear Shoes, which playfully showcased their sibling chemistry. But of the songs Johnny recorded during that youthful burst of musical energy, two remained especially dear to him: Living in the Past and Rumors. Those tunes were so close to his heart that in 2012, he went back into the studio to remake them, injecting them with the maturity of his older voice and the perspective that comes from decades of life experiences. Beyond the spotlight, the teenage Johnny Crawford did not confine his interest to singing or acting alone. He was a multifaceted performer in the broadest sense, intrigued by the fast-paced exhilaration of rodeos. Whether it was steer wrestling, calf roping, or even bull riding, Johnny tried it all, amassing membership in both the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association and the American Junior Rodeo Association. That period of his life seems almost like the stuff of legend. The boy from the Rifleman riding bulls and wrangling steers under the hot sun, perfecting trick roping techniques alongside friend and fellow performer Gene McClin. After enjoying fame as a teenage star, he took a 2-year break to serve in the Army, landing in Queens, New York. It was there he met director Charles L. Turner. Their friendship ignited another spark: a deep love for 1930s movie musicals. Turner had access to 16-millimeter prints and would screen them in his home, effectively transporting Johnny into the swirl of top hats, tuxedos, and graceful dancing that typified that glitzy Hollywood era. Enraptured by the lavish spectacle and the luscious orchestrations, Johnny started collecting song lyrics from the 1920s and 30s, jotting them down on index cards. When his Army days ended, Johnny carried that renewed passion for classic music back to civilian life. He treated himself to a classic roadster, envisioning it as a kind of symbolic link to his grandfather Bobby. He was reminded of that older generation's contributions, how they had once given voice to the songs that now lived in his own repertoire. Driven by curiosity, Johnny began sifting through the old archives his grandfather had left behind. Music sheets yellowed by time, dusty vinyl records, notes scrawled in archaic handwritings. He recognized that these mementos were more than relics. They were vital pieces of the puzzle that made up his family's creative legacy. It wasn't long before he embraced that crooner style reminiscent of Bing Crosby or Fred Astaire, layering a dash of modern flair atop it so that a new generation could also appreciate these vintage gems. Day by day, index card by index card, Johnny cultivated his own approach to performing, bridging the gap between the roaring jazz age and an audience living in a much different era. This dedication to old-time music found a home in the late 1980s, when Johnny connected with Vince Giordano and the Nighthawks. For roughly 2 years, he stood at the microphone as their lead vocalist. If you picture him in a swanky New York club, wearing a sharp suit and letting those brassy horns accompany him in an orchestra that conjured the ghosts of another century, you get a sense of the romance that infused that period of his life. During those shows, onlookers might have had no idea they were watching the former Mark McCain from the Rifleman. The years slipped by, but Johnny Crawford stayed active in entertainment. As recently as 2019, he delivered what would be his last film appearance in Bill Tillman and the Outlaws, taking on the role of silent film cowboy William S. Hart. It was a fitting tribute to his own love of silent cinema, a cinematic era that had enthralled him so deeply in his earlier years. Life, however, can turn harsh without warning. Around the same period, Johnny received a challenging diagnosis: Alzheimer's disease. As Johnny's health declined, he moved to a memory care facility and then later to a skilled nursing facility, working to manage the Alzheimer's while bravely navigating additional challenges. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, circumstances became even more precarious. He contracted the virus, battled pneumonia, and found himself facing a string of hospital stays. Yet amid all this difficulty, the lifeline of family and close friends remained constant. There are accounts of relatives and pals paying window visits, attempting to brighten his day while adhering to pandemic restrictions. Even as his world constricted and daily life took on a slower, more fragile pace, you get the sense that Johnny's spirit remained steadfast, nourished by decades of memories, both personal and generational. With the unwavering love of his devoted wife, who moved him to a smaller care home near her so she could be close by, Johnny's final days were marked by compassion and recollections of a life richly lived. Then, on April 29, 2021, at the age of 75, Johnny Crawford passed away. Word of his passing rippled through fans of classic television, old Western aficionados, and music lovers alike. The tributes that poured out were a testament to the broad tapestry of his legacy. Some recalled the sweet-faced boy from the Rifleman, while others remembered the gentle crooner who revived vintage songs, or the energetic performer who once roped calves in dusty rodeo rings. In each testament, one theme emerged. Johnny was a man who treasured the past, yet never shied away from the present. He possessed an astounding ability to navigate from Western set to big band stage, from the youthful frenzy of the Mickey Mouse Club to the gritty ring of a rodeo. Every corner of his life was steeped in curiosity and the willingness to seize opportunities that beckoned him. For those enthralled by the tapestry of entertainment history, Johnny Crawford stands out as a figure linking different epochs. From his 1950s launch into stardom to his retrospective passion for music, from the 1920s and 30s, he transcended mere chronological boundaries. He was somebody who could stand on a stage, tip his hat to the memory of Al Jolson, and then belt out a tune that might have soared in a 1930s big band review, all while sporting that familiar grin we knew from TV's Frontier. For viewers who grew up enthralled by the black and white images flickering in their living rooms, Johnny felt like family, an earnest child who matured on camera and whose life off camera constantly found new ways to surprise and delight. Crawford's cameo in Bill Tillman and the Outlaws demonstrated how determined he was to keep engaging with the medium that had originally catapulted him into the spotlight. Perhaps it was destiny that, in his final on-screen performance, he inhabited the role of a silent film cowboy, returning to an era he had come to revere for its unpolished charm and wide-eyed sense of possibility. It was a heartfelt homage, like a final flourish on a personal love letter to that golden age. Today, as more people discover or rediscover the Rifleman on streaming services, or come across a vintage vinyl featuring Johnny's youthful crooning, they tap into a shared nostalgia that surpasses generational divides. Of course, memory is fragile, and the inevitability of Alzheimer's meant that Johnny spent his final chapter contending with a disease that slowly frays the tapestries of identity. Yet the outpouring of love from fans, friends, and family showed just how strongly he had touched others' lives. People recounted personal anecdotes praising not only his artistry but his kindness. For a public figure, the sincerity behind these testimonials is proof that, beyond the stage lights, beyond the demands of celebrity, he was every bit the gracious person people hoped him to be. For everyone out there who loves stories about Hollywood's golden age, about families forging legacies in the music world, and about young talents who grow up in front of the camera lens, Johnny Crawford's life offers a well of inspiration. In a sense, his lineage, his mentors, and his personal heroes all converged to shape him into a performer who seemed at once intimately connected to the past, yet always present in the moment. He didn't simply read about the jazz age, he sang its songs. He didn't only watch Western films, he starred in one of television's most iconic Western shows. He lived at the intersection of many traditions, proving that you don't need to be restricted to a single lane. You can roam widely, forging crossovers that might spark more than one type of audience to pay attention. If we rewind to those early days on set for the Mickey Mouse Club, we can picture the eager little boy, bright-eyed, under the studio lights, still unknowing of the life he was about to embark upon. And yet all the seeds were there, the musical heritage, the flair for performance, the open-hearted curiosity. His grandmother's suggestion to sing Cry for the Disney casting directors turned out to be a small pivot point in a life filled with many more. Then he soared with the Rifleman, capturing hearts as Mark McCain, an emblem of father-son bonding in a rugged frontier. Whether pop songs from the 1960s or vaudeville-esque numbers, beloved by older generations, Johnny found room to honor them all. Maybe that was the key to his enduring appeal. He was versatile, multi-talented, and unafraid to try new things, even trick roping at a rodeo. While most teenage celebrities might have been content with a steady acting career, Johnny embraced the exhilarating rush of bull riding and calf roping, fully immersing himself in the authentic cowboy tradition. When you piece all these chapters together, child star, promising singer, dedicated rodeo enthusiast, loyal Army recruit, vintage music scholar, big band vocalist, final cameo in a tribute to classic Western lore, you get an epic biography. Every piece is distinct, yet woven through with the thread of an ardent love for performance. Johnny's personal narrative was like an expansive montage that included dusty frontier towns, neon-lit big city jazz clubs, rummage boxes of antique sheet music, and the silent reflections of a man in a memory care facility. His life was undeniably cinematic, as if he were forever stepping into different roles, each reflecting a different time period or style, but always underpinned by his genuine spirit. If you're a film buff, a music fan, or just love hearing about real-life stories that bring together the best of old Hollywood, classic Americana, and a pioneering spirit, Johnny Crawford's life stands as an endless source of fascination. Think of him as a bridge that links different cultures of entertainment, the silent film era and modern television, timeless jazz standards and country western performances, refined crooning and the rough and tumble carnival of rodeo life. It's rare to see such an all-encompassing range in a single performer, but that's precisely what makes his story so compelling. Johnny might have said his last goodbye on April 29, 2021, but in many ways, he's still riding that cinematic range, tipping his cowboy hat with a friendly grin, or perhaps standing on a bandstand, microphone in hand, crooning an old standard to an audience that can't help but smile. We hold these images, these echoes, close to our hearts because they remind us that the best performers never really depart. Their songs, their scenes, their spirit stay embedded in the collective memory, beckoning us to press play one more time. Johnny Crawford's life was a testament to the power of talent, determination, and a deep love for the arts. From his early days as a Mouseketeer to his acclaimed role on The Rifleman, and his foray into music and rodeo, Johnny left an indelible mark on every stage he graced. Despite the challenges he faced later in life, his legacy as an actor, singer, and cultural icon continues to inspire fans worldwide. Thank you for joining us in celebrating the hidden life of Johnny Crawford. May his memory live on in our hearts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about remarkable lives.